Good evening, sir.
Very good evening.
Sir, we are live on YouTube. Start करायचं, sir.
Anytime you want, sir.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast, episode 5 on emotional intelligence and student mentoring. So, it is our privilege to have welcome Dr. Shrihari Pingle, sir, Trustee of IQAC Cluster, Associate Professor, and a distinguished academic leader with extensive experience in higher education, quality assurance, and student development. As IQAC coordinator of an autonomous institution and a mentor to numerous colleges under accreditation initiatives, Pingle sir have made a significant contribution to institutional excellence. He has delivered over 350 expert lectures across the country on quality education, leadership, soft skills, and professional development. His deep understanding of emotional intelligence, mentoring, and holistic student growth makes him an ideal resource person for today's session and podcast. We are delighted to have him with us for today's episode of podcast and look forward for his invaluable insights and guidance. Thank you, sir. Up to you.
Thank you very much, sir. Uh, Let me start with the presentation. And before I start with the presentation, I'll just check if I'm being able to share the screen. Yeah, so I'm just checking if you can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
All right, and I'm audible. I am mainly concerned because I'll be having few slides where there will be some audio. So nevertheless, I just hope that that plays. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this podcast of the fifth episode by IQAC Cluster. And today, this evening, we'll be talking on emotional intelligence and student mentoring. Those who have joined this podcast, you might be knowing, most of you would be teachers, and how difficult it has been getting, understanding the students, the psyche of the students, and then mentoring them. We have been in the roles of the mentors, and we see the students and as the mentees. But, this generation, it may not be as easy as we thought to mentor them. So I thought that during this podcast, we'll be discussing on emotional intelligence and how we could mentor the students. Because having an IQ, that is intelligence quotient, is something different than that what you deal with the students with. So let us start with what we will be dealing in today's podcast. The first thing that we'll try to understand why this podcast, why this topic. Second, if we understand the importance of this topic, that means the emotional intelligence, and we would like to mentor our students, then what are those features, what are those characteristics that we must have to be a good counselor? That is second thing that we'll go through during this podcast. The third thing is, what is the role of teachers as a counselor? Fourthly, if we really want to be good counselor, then we must understand the concept of emotions. Now, emotions is a term that we use in very crude form, in terms of what we feel for our parents, what we feel for our spouse, what we feel for our, somebody in relationship, what we feel for our colleagues, what we feel for our kins and kids, right? So emotions that way, we are taking it in a very, very broad sense. Specifically, what are emotions that we'll try to understand. Then, when it comes to emotion, we have heard it several times that there is something called as emotional intelligence. But through this podcast, we'll try to assess ourselves that whether we really have that emotional intelligence quotient, EQ. Do we have that? And what are the parameters to gauge that emotional intelligence? While doing that, we'll also go through a bit of history of EI, emotional intelligence, and core competencies that are required. If you want to be a mathematician, you must understand numbers. So similarly, if you want to have higher EQ or EI, emotional intelligence, then you must have certain competencies with you. Those core competencies, what are those that we'll see? And then EI in terms of your interaction with the student. So how that emotional intelligence help the interaction of a teacher with the student is what we are going to have a look at. Going further, we are talking about a counselor. Counselor is somebody who would counsel a subject. A subject here is a student for a teacher, right? So professionally, a good counselor is somebody who would offer guidance, advice, support to a person who actually needs it in terms of his personal requirements, in his her emotion or his her psychological issues. Now, when we look back into our classrooms, you would realize that several of our students, they come to us with their some personal problems, personal issues, emotional issues, and more often than not, we have seen post-COVID that the students, they are suffering from a lot of psychological issues. So, are we in a situation to be a good counselor if a student comes to us? If we talk about NAC accreditation, then we remember that there was a question on mentor-mentee ratio. But having asked about how many mentors are there for a set of mentee, we have never been trained. Everybody, all the teachers, they have different psychological levels. All teachers cannot be, coming down to a level where they can guide or counsel all the students. So you see, some teachers are very strict, some teachers are very disciplined, some teachers are loud, some teachers are very affectionate, some teachers are very popular. So there are different kind of people. Just like students are a heterogeneous group, there are teachers who belong to heterogeneous nature. So therefore, what are those qualities which make you good counselor? Then, do you have that ability to help people navigate through the challenges? What are those challenges? The NEP coming up, there are several papers that students are going through. There is major, there is minor, there is OE. This itself is causing stress. The examination, we in our times used to have annual pattern of examination. Now we have examination every now and then, the semester exams, the internal exams, the project reports, anxiety. At the same time, I mean, excuse me for saying this sentence. In our times, probably we were not aware of the relationships in terms of the boys and the girls, the boyfriends and the girlfriends, this and that. We have different types of relationships these days. There's something called a situationship also. In our times, by probably post-graduation or graduation, we would understand this. Now the kids, they are aware of such kind of things even in their high schools and secondary schools. So they have that stress as well. Career choices, NEET, JEE, advanced, physics wala, this class, that class. We have heard so many things in the recent past, few months back. Career choices, VIT, Chennai, IITs, Roorkees, BITS, Pilani, several concerns that they are having apart from the mental health and concerns. The girls these days, they are more aware of their health, their figure, how they look like, how strong they are mentally. In our times, we would eat and sleep and play. The things were very simple. Now the things are not that simple, and there are several reasons for that. Anyways, what are the reasons that we'll discuss later? The problem is, do we take all these things into consideration when we sit and talk with the students? To be a good counselor, this is something that needs to be addressed. Now, counselors, especially the professional counselors, they work sometimes in groups or families also when they need to address the broader concerns. So sometimes the problem will be such and so that you will have to take it up to your their families, take it up to various departments in the institution, take it up to the head of the institution, or at a larger scale also. So having understood that being counselor is not an easy task, we must understand the traits of a good counselor. Let us see what are these traits. Trait number one, and that is a very important feature. मुझे क्या लेना देना, मुझे क्या फर्क पड़ता है, वो देख लेगा, वो अपना संभाल लेगा, कैन नॉट बी अ ट्रेट ऑफ अ गुड काउंसिलर. The most important feature a good counselor should have is empathy. And people here would understand that there is something else called as sympathy. Then what is difference between sympathy and empathy? Empathy is something that you would feel for somebody you do not even know, right? As somebody has fallen from a motorcycle on road, that person is not of your acquaintance, but you still feel like, helping that person. That is empathy. So man, you may not be very close to your student, but at the same time, do you have that desire to understand and share the feelings of that student? That is empathy. So you observe the teachers around you. Not every teacher is interested. Not every teacher is interested. That means there are few who would go and talk to the students, listen to them. That is the feeling of empathy and most important feature of being a good counselor. The second thing is active listening. Before you do anything, you have to be a good listener, and that is little difficult for a teacher because, like me and like you, several teachers are good at speaking. By our profession, we have to stand up for 40-45 minutes, 1 hour sometime, and give a lecture. So it is our habit. So speaking is our habit, narrating is our habit, dictating is our habit, but listening often is not our forte, not our habit. So active listening is sometimes, that means you give time to your students, focus completely what your students want to say, give them time to speak even if they don't want to, and understanding their concerns without interruption. Now that is also very important because teachers, they like to dominate by nature, right? So even if the student is about to complete the statement, teacher will ask something again. That comes by nature, right? So here we have to, practice that habit of listening to the students, listening to our mentees. Third important feature would be a non-judgmental attitude. See, how many of us, those who are listening to this podcast, how many of us would pass a generalized statement these days that students को कोई लेना देना नहीं है, उनको सिर्फ डिग्री चाहिए, उनको क्लास में नहीं आना, उनको पढ़ाई नहीं करनी है, उनको सिर्फ रील्स देखना है, उनको सिर्फ इंस्टाग्राम चलाना है, उनको सिर्फ फॉलोअर्स बनाना है. Now, this is a generalized view that we have developed for our students, but that does not mean that all students are alike. There might be students who genuinely want to come to the class, do something, put some efforts, but there might be several other hurdles. So we cannot be judgmental for all the students. There can be students with genuine problems, and therefore, before you make any judgment about their students, regardless of understanding their thoughts, their backgrounds, their actions, would create a problem, would create a hurdle in effective mentoring. So one has to be non-judgmental to be a good mentor. Fourth is patience. I'll give you an example. I thought that I would give you this example later in my presentation, but probably I'll start with this example right now. And the example is of a girl. In fact, I got a call from this girl this morning also. I was evaluating, in fact, I was an examiner for the first year practical of my class. And this girl got her admission late. She took admission late in the session. So I guess she came to our class in around, say, September. Ours is an autonomous college. So by September, the examination forms were filled. Almost all practicals were over. And this girl was nervous because she knew that having not attended any practical is going to cause her problem. In my institution, I have an image of being a strict teacher who stick to, rules and regulation kind of stuff. But that is a kind of coconut shell. So I'm a coconut shell from outside, but tender from inside. So the thing was that this girl was afraid. So by the time a few other students were doing some experiments, I sent a batch of students for spotting, identification, something that happens in biology. Now, this girl, she appeared for the spotting. The scripts came to me for evaluation. I evaluated those scripts. She did reasonably well. I was aware that this girl had taken admission late, so I was concerned whether she would pass the exams or not. While going through the scripts, I realized that if she does one or two experiments reasonably well, she would pass the practical examination. She came back from the spotting and identification, sat for the experiment, and started writing something down. To my surprise, this girl got up and ran away. This girl got up and ran away literally. I told my fellow teachers to catch hold of her, bring her back. She was not willing to come back. Somehow they got her back. She sat in front of me. I counseled her for some time. She sat for 5-10 minutes. She started writing something. She ran away again. I looked at my scripts and what she had written in another script, and I got a feeling that I can now pass this girl. She will clear the examination. The third time she ran away, I allowed her to run away. And then called her up next day along with her friend and counseled her. You would not believe she cleared all her exam in the second semester also. But to my surprise, I came to know that this girl wanted to take admission in some other college again this term. And she called up me this morning saying that she wants to do some computer course. Is it fine if she does not come to college and comes only in some 15 days or so? Now, this is a tricky situation where I will be, needing to talk to her again when the college reopens. That calls for the patience. I cannot give up on that kid. She's really in some kind of problem, no? So that's where patience come into play. I cannot, हाँ छोड़ दो college, जाओ यार बहुत हो गया. I cannot do this. That's where the patience come into play. You cannot rush. You cannot rush into decision and you cannot pressurize the student. Confidentiality. Having talked about that girl, I have not disclosed her name. I have not disclosed her identity. And that is the biggest fear that the students they have these days. Because the world has become such a small place. If I speak something here, it will go viral again immediately. It is on YouTube live. That student will come to know. She will be afraid. And I do not know, it will create additional pressure on that particular student, right? So you will have to assure your student that whatever information the students are sharing with you will remain with you. Privacy of that student should be, given prime importance. So these are traits of good counselor. To add to these traits is effective communication. What effective communication means is not talking in English, not talking in a particular language, talking in a language and in a way that student feels comfortable with. Maybe a little sportingly, playful, in local vernacular language, their way, where they would feel comfortable with you so that they answer your questions. Once they start answering your questions, you get a clear insight, and then on the basis of that, you can guide the student. Emotional stability. Yours and the emotional stability of the student, both at the same time, is very important. Imagine a student seeks some kind of counseling, and while you were counseling a student, you had, say, 5 minutes back, received a call from a principal asking to submit a report immediately. Now, your frame of mind is not healthy at that time to counsel that student. The best thing that you can do is recollect yourself, give some time to the student, ask him or her to come later, or postpone the job that principal has given you. But the problem is you have to find the right balance to be in a situation where both of you, that means the mentor and the mentee, are in some kind of emotional stability to solve the issue. Now, another feature, another characteristic is definitely a skill that not all of us have. That is called as problem solving. That comes by experience. Because at our age, I imagine that most of the teachers would be, say late 20s to 60s, a range of professors, a range of teachers. That comes by experience, problem solving skills, because we have experienced so many situations in our lives as students, as teachers, as parents, that we know what can be the right solution to a given problem. So a student will come up with certain problem. Based on our experience, we can offer him or her a set of solution and ask the student to choose the solution that suits him the most, suits her the most. So identifying the problems for a particular student and then providing the potential solution, not one solution, potential solution, and let him or her choose the correct solution which suits him or her the best. That is problem solving skill. Compassion. Compassion means genuine care that you show for the student. Sometimes, just patting the student saying, beta, ghabra mat beta, ghabru nako bada, is enough. That itself is enough. Again, I'll give you an example. Two of my students came to me some 10 years back, and they said, sir, I've lost my mother. Another guy said, I have lost my father. The guy said, because I have lost my father, I have to take care of my house, I have to earn something. And the girl said, I have lost my mother, so I have to look after home, cook and everything and take care of my siblings. So is it fine that if I do not attend most of the classes and some practicals as well? I knew both of them. They were good students. One girl was Hase and another guy was Dhage. I remember, and I'm deliberately disclosing these names. I said, don't disclose. I'm disclosing these names because they did well. So I said that, beta, तुमसे आई वडील, I'll switch on to Hindi because I do not know what sort of audience I'm having. बेटा घबरा मत, मुझे पता है तुमने अपनी माँ खो दी है, मुझे पता है तुमने अपने पिताजी खो दिए हैं, उनकी कमी भर तो नहीं सकते हैं, लेकिन जो कुछ हमसे बन पड़ेगा हम करेंगे, चिंता मत कर बेटा. I hugged the guy and told them that I do not know why, but I'm sure that despite of all the difficulties, you will attend most of the classes and practical. I told them so. And you won't believe they were the most attentive students in the class. That is compassion, a care, a concern that you can show for your mentees. At the same time, that cultural sensitivity is also important. The students come from diverse backgrounds, rural background, urban background. The rural background is sometimes very easy to treat if you go to their level. Urban has become little different because they are way ahead of our times. So that becomes different. Languages can be barrier, cultures can be barrier. So you might be coming from a convent as a teacher, but the students might be coming from Jilla Parishad school. They might not be very, rich in terms of their vocabulary, their cultural background, their personalities. You need to, address that gap between you and the student, being sensitive about the cultural background from where they're coming, and make them feel comfortable so that you can go ahead with the mentorship. So what teachers can do as a counselor? Now, one number thing is emotional support in the classroom. So if, say, for example, you're noticing signs of anxiety in a student, just like I told you, the student kept running off from the practical examination. Giving the student time to talk is most important thing one can do. There can be instances, there can be situation where the students have some family problems. There is a girl, I remember, was irregular. Yes, the topper of my third year BSc girl, BSc class. The problem was that her father was drunkard and she suddenly got irregular in the classes. I will tell you, sir. I will tell you, sir. I will tell you, sir. I said, okay, fine. You tell me whenever you are comfortable. One fine day, she told me, sir, my father is drunkard. There are frequent quarrels in my house. And so I'm not, mentally stable. But I'm doing my bit. I'm trying to do it. But she was mature enough girl, so she handled it on her own. But then there was a problem for her absentee in the class. Bullying. Sometimes, the fellow students, they would bully a student. That can be a concern. The student will not come to the class. Then our duty is to, can we refer the student to a counselor, counsel them on their own, or build trust through consistent and non-judgmental communication. Keep talking to them. Keep giving them some hope. There can be conflict sometimes between two students. You would easily notice that in a class there are several groups. So one group fights with another group. There's conflict. And sometimes the reasons for conflict are very simple. There's a group of toppers. There's a group of those who are not doing well in the education. There's a group which wants to attend the class. There is a group who wants to bunk the class. There's a group who is a favorite of a teacher. There is a group who is not so favorite of a teacher. So there will be always conflict of some kind between the students. Make the students understand that these conflicts are temporary and can be resolved easily. Taking them together, sitting along with them together and talking about the issue will probably solve the conflicts. So this is how a teacher can be a good counselor. But let us now understand what are emotions. Once we understand different kinds of emotion, try to correlate this slide with the day-to-day life that you spend in your classroom, and you realize that you see all sorts of these emotions in your class. Even in yourself, angry. There are several ways to get angry. You are sometimes frustrated. Frustrated means you did some experiment, it is not working, angry. You had set up some practical, the results didn't come, you are angry. You had taken the examination, the students have not performed, frustrated, annoyed, impatient, disgusted, offended. Somebody said something in the class. A student did not behave in a manner you wanted to. You are offended. चिड़चिड़ होने लगी. Sad, disappointed, mournful, कुछ बुरा हो गया. पेपर रिजेक्ट हो गया. एक रिसर्च पेपर भेजा था, मैन्यूस्क्रिप्ट भेजा था किसी जर्नल में. 4 हफ्ते हो गए, 8 हफ्ते हो गए, एडिटर ने रिजेक्ट कर दिया. राइट? तो आप डिसअपॉइंट हो गए, डिप्रेस हो गए, यानी सैड हो गए, पेसिमिस्ट हो गए. समटाइम्स एक पेपर रिजेक्ट हो गया, एक बार ही रिजेक्ट हो गया, बहुत सारे कमेंट आ गए, तो पेसिमिस्ट हो गए हैं कि अगला पेपर तो अब सबमिट ही नहीं करना है. कुछ बुरा हो गया, एग्जाम्स में मार्क्स कम आ गए स्टूडेंट्स के, टीयरफुल, रोने लगा. आई रिमेंबर व्हेन आई वाज अ स्टूडेंट इन क्लास 7, I got 32 marks out of 35 in one of the unit tests and I was crying. So teacher came to me and said, "Why are you crying, Shrihari?" I said, "I got 32 out of 35. So she said, "These are good marks, right?" I said, "No, I used to get 34 and now I have got 32 and my mother will scold me." So I was crying, tearful, I was sad, right? So a student can be sad just because he or she got less marks, or he or she, somebody, the best friend probably said something to her or him. So that makes him or her tearful, anxious, afraid of something, afraid of examination, afraid of a viva, afraid of a oral, confused, learned something, read something, unable to recall, worried, what will happen, nervous, legs are shaking, right? Anxious. Students, they have these features, characteristic behavior patterns. You're hurt sometime. Your students are hurt sometime because they've been betrayed by their, say for example, the classmates. मैं तुझे नोट्स दूंगा पर दिए ही नहीं, मैं एग्जाम में तुझे कॉपी दिखाऊंगा, नहीं दिखाई. या विक्टिमाइज हो गए. टीचर ने भरे क्लासरूम में जोर से डांट दिया, बहुत जोर से डांट दिया. द स्टूडेंट्स, दे हैव अ ह्यूज ईगो दीज डेज. तो क्लासरूम में सबके सामने डांटना इज लाइक उनके ईमान की बात हो जाती है. सो दे फील टॉर्मेंटेड, एग्रीवेटेड, विक्टिमाइज्ड. दैट इज अ फीलिंग ऑफ बीइंग हर्ट, अबंडन्ड. क्लास में कई बार अकेले छोड़ देते हैं. एक बच्चा अकेला बैठा रहता है, उससे कोई बात नहीं कर रहा है, बाकियों के ग्रुप है, ये अकेला आता है, अकेला जाता है. So that is feeling of abandonment. Again, it hurts a lot. Embarrassment. बाकी क्लास में सब अच्छे कर रहे हैं, एक ही बच्चा फेल हो गया, तो उसको बहुत बुरा लग रहा है, वो इंफीरियर फील कर रहा है. कोई एक्सपेरिमेंट था, सबने अच्छे से किया, इसका स्लाइड नहीं बना, माइक्रोस्कोप सेट करते नहीं आ रहा है. द स्टूडेंट इज फीलिंग अशेम्ड. उसको पैथेटिक लग रहा है कि अरे यार सब कर सकते हैं, मैं क्यों नहीं कर सकता हूं. सेल्फ कॉन्शियस. सारे बच्चे अच्छे कपड़े पहन करके आए हैं, इसके ही कपड़े अच्छे नहीं है, यूनिफॉर्म नहीं है. सेल्फ कॉन्शियस. आई थिंक ऑल ऑफ यू मस्ट लिसन टू दिस ब्यूटिफुल यूट्यूब वीडियो ऑफ an influencer, motivational speaker, Mahatriya, who talks about a teacher called as Mrs. Thompson and her student Teddy, who later on becomes Dr. Theodore. A wonderful story on internet. I request all of you to search this. You might have heard it. That there is this lady teacher who keeps scolding this guy Teddy, who comes unkept, untidy in the classroom all the time. And this teacher would, scold her for any particular reason. But later on, she realizes that that was actually a bright student, but because that bright student lost her mother due to a terminal cancer, has gradually flunked in class 5th. But when she starts encouraging the same student who had flunked in class 5th, the student starts performing well, finally writing a letter to the teacher that I have seen several teachers in my life, but Mrs. Thompson, you have been the best. Calling several years later, inviting her through a letter and return flight tickets for marriage ceremony, writes down Dr. Theodore, PhD. So an inferior student, a student who is guilty, a student who is ashamed and embarrassed can do wonders through our efforts only, through our mentoring only. That's the beauty of mentoring one can see. Students can show certain other emotions, being happy, being thankful. I remember, there's nothing to remember. Actually, it is the thing which happened day before yesterday only. I shared a status on my Instagram, a story where this old heroine, Revati, is talking about teachers and telling that engineer probably would spoil few people, few bridges. A doctor will, not treat few patients well, but a teacher, if gone wrong, will spoil several generations. To that story, one of my students replied, whom I had recently guided for her career to take up BSc Biotech in one of the institution. She said, thank you so much, sir, that you had guided me and I've learned so much from you. Thanks a lot. She felt happy, something happy about my relation with her. So she was thankful to me, that feeling of happiness, right? So when they get good marks, when they're accoladed in the class, when they're applauded in the class, when they're complimented in the class, when they get good marks, they're happy. When they get placed through placement interviews, they are happy. When they're able to solve some problems in the classroom, they feel happy. These are several kind of emotions that students do show. So what is emotional intelligence? Now you can read this definition on your own, both the definitions. One of the definition is as old as 1993. Another one is recent by stock in say around 2000. What both the definitions have in common is this thing: own and others. First definition also talks about your ability to acquire and apply knowledge of your emotions and the emotions of others. The second definition says a type of social intelligence that involves the ability to monitor one's own and others' emotion. I would not read the rest of the thing. Point here I'm trying to emphasize is emotional intelligence is not only about my emotions, it is emotions of others as well. How you acquire and apply the knowledge of your emotions along with the emotions of others. So my emotion can be anger, my emotion can be discipline, my emotion can be strictness, my emotion can be honesty, but at the same time, what are the emotions of my students? Now, can I bring them together on the same page and handle the situation accordingly is emotional intelligence. So if you're looking for emotional intelligence in your teachers, imagine you are, say, a recruiter, HR recruiter or principal of your institution. So you're not looking at your results, you are not looking at your students, the result percentage, pass percentage, merits, etc. You are not looking at policies and procedures. You are not looking at the process of recruiting. You are not looking at the behaviors that you want from your teachers, but you are looking at the values and the beliefs. If a teacher really loves the students, that is the value. That is the belief of the teacher. Emotional intelligence is not generally, written down. It does not show externally. It is unspoken. The students can feel that bond. It is your style. Emotional intelligence is your style. So how you communicate? Do you communicate, through smile? Do you communicate through, just like I told you, a pat on the back or just moving your hand on the head of a student? Emotional intelligence is reflected in the type of people you hire. A strict person, as I said, can be gentle as well. And do you reward it? Welfare and appreciation for such behaviors? I think a good mentor in an institution should be rewarded. Best mentor award is something that institutions should institute in the colleges also. This is something a bit of history with respect to emotional intelligence. I'm just looking at the time in my mobile phone so that I do not, overshoot the time. I still have some time, around say 25 minutes. So this concept was, identified first by this fellow Thorndike in 1920. So it is pretty old concept, which started with the term not an emotional intelligence, but social intelligence, something that we address in the society. Because in society, we come across all sorts of people. So that was termed as social intelligence in those times. Specifically, Thorndike mentioned men and women, boys and girls. That means something that applies to everybody, and he termed it in terms of human relations. So he said the ability to understand and manage men and women, boys and girls to act wisely in human relations. Something that would, keep the relations intact. So that feeling of social intelligence, samajik bandhilki, we would say it in Marathi. And in recent times, in 90s, emotional intelligence became more popular through this book by Daniel Goleman. And when he wrote this book, Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ, this book became popular in 1995. And the crux of this book was that empathy and communication skills, social and leadership skills are central to success in life and personal relationships. So if you know and see around, people are not struggling with careers actually. They're doing well with careers. They've got jobs in big MNCs. Even the youngest of my niece and nephews, they're earning as good as at least 10 lakh per annum package. What they are struggling with is their lives, their personal relationships, their communication skills, their problems in the society, the leadership, etc. So career actually is not a problem. What lies there in case of problem is their ability to handle, relationships. So rather than high IQ, it is better to have high EQ, emotional intelligence, is what this book tells you. So we understand now that emotional intelligence is something that we need to have to be a good individual, to be a good teacher, and most importantly, to be a good counselor. Where should we focus now? What should we do? And when I tell you these 5 domains where one should focus to be a good counselor, to be a good mentor, you would realize, try to introspect yourself. How do you behave with your students? How do you behave in general with people around, in your family also? So first thing that comes is self-awareness. Let us introspect. Where do we stand? Self-awareness. If we realize that there is something wrong with us, the way we behave, the way we talk to our students, communicate to the students, listen to them or not, then comes the second step, that is self-management. We'll have to carry out this exercise of self-management. And for doing that, there is third step, which is very important, self-motivation. We'll have to motivate ourselves that we can do this exercise. Fourth, we must learn this art of recognizing the emotions in others. I remember one of my professors, Dr. Deepti Devbakkar, and she always used to say, and I love that statement, you should learn the art of appreciation. I do not know if I have actually learned it or not, but that statement holds true and will hold true, that one should learn the art of appreciation. We have to be positive. We have to be in a situation to recognize emotions in the others, because more often than not, हम अपने दुखड़े पे रोते हैं. मेरे साथ ऐसा हुआ, मेरा वैसा हुआ. There is a song, famous old song, which says that दुनिया में कितना गम है, मेरा गम कितना कम है. Have you heard that song? So if you, I saw this reel yesterday. I'm into social media sometimes. So Atharva Sudame, you might have seen his reels. So Atharva Sudame goes to a sweet shop and asks to give half kg of pedha. And friends come up and says, अरे अथर्व काय करतोय? तो म्हणे अरे मी अर्धा किलो पेढे घेतोय, मी ना नवीन 2-व्हीलर घेतलेली आहे. The other guy says कि अरे मला पण 1 किलो पेढे द्या. तो म्हणे अरे तू क्यों ले रहा है 1 किलो पेढे? तो बोले मैंने ना 4 व्हीलर ली है। अब जैसे ये सुनता है कि इसने 4 व्हीलर ली है, तो इसका 2 व्हीलर का जो सुख रहता है, खुशी रहती है, वो मर जाती है। बोलता है जाने दे, मेरे आधे किलो पेड़े कैंसिल कर। ये वैसे ही मूत रहा है, घर आ जाता है। और घर के पास इसको इसका सोसाइटी का सिक्योरिटी गार्ड मिलता है। और सिक्योरिटी गार्ड कहता है, ओ सर सर सर, पेड़े क्या, पेड़े लो। तो वो कहता है क्यों भाई, किस बात के पेड़े बांट रहे हो? तो बोलता है अरे मैंने नई साइकिल खरीदी है। तो वो हंसता है, बोला अरे साइकिल खरीदी है तो इसमें क्या पेड़े बांटने की चीज है? तो कहता है सर कल तक मैं पैदल आता था, अब मैं आराम से साइकिल से आऊंगा। सो लुक एट द हैप्पीनेस, लुक एट द इमोशंस। There was that emotion where one was happy because he bought a 4 wheeler. There is an emotion where somebody has bought a 2 wheeler. Both are emotions. And there is an emotion that was with you because you were not happy with somebody had bought 4 wheeler. And you are wondering why somebody is so happy who has bought a bicycle. So try to learn recognizing the emotions in others. We are very crooked that way. वो प्रोफेसर हो गया तो आपको जलन हो गई, परेशान हो गए भाई, वो प्रोफेसर हो गया, उसके तो पब्लिकेशन ही नहीं थे, उसने तो कमेटी कर ली होगी एडजस्ट। खुश है ना, आप भी खुश हो जाओ। रिकॉग्नाइजिंग द इमोशंस इन अदर्स, रिलेशनशिप मैनेजमेंट, वी हैव टू लर्न दिस आर्ट in our times, in the times to come. Relationships have become difficult to handle. In recent times I have heard so many cases where the husbands are not going well with the wives are not going well with the husband. I have come across several of my friends bole we are separated. So we have not been able to manage the relationships, not even us as professionals. We do not have healthy relationships with our leaders, with principals, the vice principals, or our fellow teachers, head of the departments. Not always. There are several people with whom we are having some sort kind of relationships. So first thing that comes up is self-awareness, observing yourself. Look at yourself, introspect at yourself, and see whether you are able to recognize a feeling as it happens. As it happens, that means कोई स्टूडेंट कुछ लेकर के आ गया, लेट असाइनमेंट लेकर के आ गया है, कैसे रिएक्ट करोगे? इफ यू आस्क मी, आई विल बी एंग्री. I'll ask him, what was the last date? Why did you submit it on time? So this is self reflection. This is self awareness. And do I need to improve upon it? Yes. I always falter on this as a teacher. I think what I should do is ask him why he or she is late. But unfortunately, my nature, I am like, what was the last date? So before asking him what was the problem, my question is, what was the last date? So that is something that I have recognized, and I will try to probably improve upon it. That is self-awareness. The ability to accurately perceive and be cognizant of your emotions as you interact with others. So this realization as to how I behave in a particular situation with others is self-awareness. Now try to put yourself in similar such situations and gauge where do you stand. This is first exercise. Second exercise is, if you have gauged it, if you have got a knowledge of where you want to improve and how do you actually react to situations, the second step is self-management. That is transforming your emotions. So as a teacher, what I should be doing next time whenever a student comes with late assignment is asking him or her a reason why he or she is late, rather than scolding him, why are you late? What was the last date? No, asking him, was there any reason for you to be late? Are you fine? Were you sick? Is the way probably I can ask him or her. But in today's time, this has become difficult, I understand. But this is how one can transform our emotions. The ability to use emotional awareness to positively and purposefully manage and direct your emotions, as I said just now. So rather than asking what was the last date, was there some problem? Can I help you? Any particular reason for delay? This way you can be a bit positive with your emotions. Finding ways to handle fears and anxieties, anger and sadness. So if you feel that you are anxious on certain occasion, you are angry on certain occasions, can you find out certain ways? And for that, there are some tricks. I think there is a clip coming up. Before I play this clip, I would like to confirm that whether this is visible and whether it is audible. Atharva, can you please confirm if the clip is visible, the video? How do I share the audio? Yeah, I'll play it again. On the Zoom, I have enabled the sharing of audio. 1 से 10 तक. This is something that several of us know, will tell our students also, but on occasions we ourselves are not able to behave like this. I'm in a habit of taking names of people when I appreciate and avoid taking name when I'm telling something negative. I would take name of my ex-principal, Dr. K.K. Deshmukh, for this matter. And he had this very good, habit. If you go with some problem, in the institute, in the college, to him, he would not sometimes offer immediate solution. He would say that सोचेंगे, सोचते हैं, चर्चा करेंगे. And that is very good thing, offering some time to a problem. So it is just like in this movie clip where, when the anger comes, you give it time to calm down the anger. ये बोलना बहुत आसान होता है, लेकिन करना actually मुश्किल होता है. Right? So can we actually do it? This is self-management, just an example of self-management, right? So next time a student comes to you late with his or her assignment, can you try to control your anger? If a student is entering late into the classroom, can you start to control your anger and just gently ask him the question why he or she is late? I learned this uh, over a period of, say, 18 years in my college, when I realized that students come, say, 20 kilometers far away in some village around the Sangamner town, And then I realized they do not have their buses. They sometimes comes walking from the bus stand, and I started gradually excusing them. So this is self-management. Then comes self-motivation. When you will tell yourself that you need to control your emotions, calling up feelings of confidence and enthusiasm in yourself. You can be a bit enthusiastic in the classroom with the students, encourage them, feeling of that confidence that you can give to your students, rather than those impulsive actions that you take. So you have to tell yourself this, yes, this can be done. That is self-motivation. Another clip coming up, and these are very familiar clips that you have seen. I love this one because this comes from a disclaimer here that all the videos which are being shown are for the purpose of teaching and training, and no copyright breach is intended. So this is sometimes how your classroom goes. You get several different kinds of students in your classroom, right? So that's where self-motivation comes in, that yes, I can change the situation. Even the worst of the students can be your friends later on. Then comes another feature which we have discussed earlier, empathy. You have to take up the problems of the students as your problems. You have to understand those emotional cues which are coming up from the students, and then determine that what can cause the students to respond favorably or adversely. Under what circumstances students respond negatively, under what circumstances they respond favorably. If the students are not coming to the class, there might be some reason. If the students do not like you for some reason, now find out that reason. And what can be improved is something to focus upon. Appreciating the differences in how people feel about things. Your student recently, with one of the university in North India, the problem happened in one of the conventions. The phrase which became very common was, your 6 can be my 9. But that holds true. The 9 that you are showing can be a 6 for your student. So try to appreciate the difference, how the student perceive for the same thing that you are showing. Appreciate if a student is coming up with a solution in different steps, different way than what you have told them to do, right? This is empathy. This is another quick clip which I will avoid because a lot of videos and we are left with some 7 minutes only. Relationship management is next point. Setting up a positive tone of cooperation. The ability to use emotional awareness to direct and manage interactions with others to build more effective and purposeful and mutually beneficial relationships. In simpler terms, we can call it as a win-win situation. Can you, focus on good things in your colleagues, in your students, and encourage them to go ahead with them? Can you bring in your good features along with the better features of your partners, colleagues, and the students and come up with something? Be it be OJT, be it be research project, be it be a gathering, be it be a dance competition, be it be a cultural activity of your institution, right? So that is relationship management. That means finding good in both of us, the teachers and the students. Then what is the role of EI in student-teacher interaction? So if you have understood emotional intelligence, you will eventually find that the communication is getting improved. There is motivation and better engagement of the students in the college and in the classrooms. The students are offering constructive feedback. Say, for example, one of my students said, "Sir, ये क्या syllabus है? इसमें तो वही है जो पहले पढ़ा था." That actually, forced me to look into what new I can and I should be introducing in my curriculum, being an autonomous college. So she could have that courage to speak no just because she felt that she can talk that way to me, right? So they started providing constructive feedback to me. Classroom discipline and empathy. I do not remember that in my class any notoriety has been created. I told you that I am a coconut, hard from outside but tender from inside. So they would probably respect me as well. They would call me with different names also. But I personally feel that they are disciplined in the classroom just because they know that my purpose is genuine, and genuinity of your purpose is very important. When they understand that you are empathetic about their behavior as well, they would be more attentive in the classroom. They would be more regular in the classroom. Now, there are few examples. Teaching a student to manage test anxiety through breathing exercise, say, for example. A student is shaking legs, nervous, sweating. What you can do is sit down 5 minutes. We usually actually do it. Drink some water, take a sip of water, lie down, breathe in, breathe out. And when she or he feels normal, then you can ask him or her to go ahead with the examination. You can tell your life experiences, how you used to manage the stress, encouraging the students to, do the similar things. I'm not recalling something from the examination or my students, but I remember my visit to Ladakh once, and I was having my family and friends. One of my friend's wife, she had this problem at Khardungla Pass in Ladakh, less oxygen. So she was feeling suffocated. And she said, मुझे ना बड़ी तकलीफ हो रही, मुझे बड़ी तकलीफ हो रही. I said, भाभी जी टेंशन मत लो, आप ना एक बार अनुलोम विलोम प्राणायाम कर लो, या ये ऐसे ऐसे कर लो एक बारी. And she did it twice, thrice. मैंने कहा उससे अच्छा लगता है, अच्छा लगता है. I kept it telling her so confidently after doing it 5 or 6 times. She said, हाँ श्रीहरि जी अच्छा लग रहा है. So whenever she started complaining about, suffocation, she would do it 4 or 5 times and she would feel, so हो गया Ladakh, Khardungla Pass भी निकल गया. And her fear, her anxiety also went off, right? During group projects, you can, resolve the disagreements by listening to all the students. Students sometimes come to me. Even few days back, a group of students came to me, बोले सर आपने वहां मुझे ऑन जॉब ट्रेनिंग के लिए भेजा है, वहां पे तो हमसे बहुत काम करा रहे हैं. फिर then I sat with the students, heard their side, heard the industry side as well. Then we came down to consensus. We wrote down to each other and we came down to consensus. And students also learned that this is quite early in their career. At least they are getting some stipend also. They're in the learning phase also, where this will happen. Gradually, they'll come to a stage where they will earn more and doing less work, right? So that is where listening comes into the play. And then reducing teachers' stress. We are coming down to the close of this podcast. Few more slides. Reducing teacher stress is important because if your stress is reduced, then only you will be in a situation to mentor your students effectively. So managing classroom dynamics is very important. You should not be keeping your classroom chaotic. A teacher should remain calm, setting the tone for the student. So if the teacher is irritated all the time, the classroom will also be irritated. Student will be sitting like this. Club ye class khatam hogi. If teacher is chirpy, kind of, joyful, talking to the students. I remember when I go to class, I go to even the most last benches of the classroom. Sometimes sit next to my student so that they feel that something is happening in the class. And every now and then I'll ask them to respond to something so that they remain attentive. So that is a dynamic classroom. Burnout is very important. So if you tell few things, see, this podcast is of 1 hour. If this podcast become 2 hour podcast, you will leave me halfway, right? So there is a burnout. You can, take something for a given period of time. After that, you will not be able to receive it. So can you engage the students in activity to reduce stress and avoid emotional exhaustion? The stress, right? That is preventing the burnout, and creating a balanced classroom environment where strictness and kindness come together. That is what I'm trying to tell you. Sometimes my students say, कहते हैं सर, तुमची खूब भीती वाटते, आपसे बहुत डर लगता है. मैंने कहा यार क्यों डर लगता है, मैं इतना बुरा भी नहीं हूं, आई एम नॉन टॉक्सिक एनिमल, मैं ऐसे भाषा में बोलता हूँ, मैं हार्मलेस एनिमल आहे. तो बोलते हैं नहीं सर, आदर युक्त भीति आहे. अब फिर मैं हंसी हंसी में कहता हूँ ये केशर युक्त च्यवनप्राश जैसा लगता है आदर युक्त भीति. So that other yukta bhiti only comes when they know that this person is strict, because he want you to be attentive in the classroom, come regularly into the classroom. But whenever you are in some kind of trouble, he will address your problems, right? So that is a balance of strictness and kindness that all of you should have. So with this, I think I have finished exactly on dot 7. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, the 5th episode where we talked about emotional intelligence and student mentoring. This is my email ID and phone number for you. In future, whenever you feel like getting in touch with me, the mobile number and email ID is available for you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So, just a minute, sir. We have two questions which we have received.
All right.
So, one of the question is, what information initially mentor is expected to collect about mentee before mentoring?
All right. A good question. Now, this is an ongoing process. Before you start with, mentoring a set of students, because the NAC problem came in, NAC asked this question, mentor, mentee, and how many mentees are there for a particular mentor. The colleges got into this practice of assigning a set of students. So I'm saying set of students. Before, start, when you are giving a set of students, try to collect. In my college, we have a booklet where a lot of information of the student is collected beforehand. This information talks about the name of the student, their date of birth, their previous education, their pass percentage in the earlier classes, their family background, what do their parents do, what is the occupation, what is their family income, their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, challenges, their hobbies, what are their goals, short terms, long term, their participation in some co-curricular, extracurricular activity, their health sometimes, and financial situations, expectations from the mentors. All these taken place, collected in one a mentor book, counseling book is what we have in our institution, will help you gauge the background of the institution. Now, why I said that this is an ongoing process is, once an internal examination takes place, or semester exams, you have to note down that performance also in the counseling book, so that next time when the student comes to you, you have another set of quantitative parameters available with you for assessing the performance or the emotional level of the student. So a lot of information, like I told you, needs to be collected systematically for all the mentees before you start counseling them. Do we have another question?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir. I'm Dr. Mahendra Mani, IQAC Director from Marudar Kesi Jain College, Vaniyambadi, Tirupattur District.
Very good evening, sir.
You explain about so many things about emotional intelligence. Sir, I'm working in a women's college. Totally 3,300 students, they are women. Very limited faculty members who are male. How can I handle such kind of emotional situation, the woman student as a male faculty, sir?
Okay, you have around, say, 3,300 women students, and how many are male teachers?
Only 15, sir.
Only 15? Do you have female teachers as well?
Yes, sir. Nearly 160 plus.
160
60 plus.
teachers as well.
Yeah, sir.
See, there are two things. One, not all female teachers will have a problem or a counseling situation where there's something typically stuck to gender related problem, right? So more often than not, a male with, keeping that limitation of what and to what extent interaction should go can carefully resolve the issues with the female students. I can easily tell you that several of students, female students, they treat me like brother sometimes, they treat me like father sometimes. And because at this age, the age gap is around 20 years between me and my students. So they do get that feeling that this is a brotherly figure or fatherly figure. That trust has to be created amongst the students so that they can open up in sense of they can tell you their problem as well. I can openly tell you here that several of the girls, they had come up with problems that they could not disclose with female teachers also, sometimes with me, right? So that should not stop you from counseling them, number one. Number two, in certain situations where you feel that you are not the right person and gender is coming across between you and your student, under such circumstances, you can definitely forward the cases to your female fellow teachers. When it is between you and the female teacher, then that boundary has to be, respected between a female teacher and a male teacher, right? That's the only thing. Because see, this is about emotional intelligence, so rest of the things do not come. A good kind word beta itself is enough. I'm giving you an example where I would pat a boy on the back, but I would avoid doing it if it is a girl. As simple as that. But a word beta will be there so that she feels comfortable. I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, right, sir. One more question, sir. As IQAC
Yes, sir.
director, we have already mentioned 160 plus female faculty members. And
Yes.
NAC also always insisting to do mental health and well-being of the student. But as a faculty members, you know very well about there are say 18 to 22 hours of engagement of classes and NAC accreditation process, club and activity, extension activity, files, documentation, OB, so many activities are going on. How, as a faculty, we can make our emotional to control or make it in intelligence?
That is something that we need to learn. See, when things come in bits and pieces, they are not that troublesome. But when things come up in lots, they become troublesome. So, talking about this mentor mentee stuff, I would tell you one thing, that the proposed binary accreditation feature of NAC, it will probably, I said proposed, it will probably not ask you about how many mentee are assigned to a mentor teacher. It would probably ask you how many trained mentors are available in your institution. And that is what I have been trying to do through these lectures that I'm giving on emotional intelligence. Once a teacher gets trained with, dealing with the emotions, he or she will be in a situation to rightly mentor the mentees. I understand that the workloads are immense on the teachers. So what I do in my institution is there is no, unassigned day. So I would assign a particular day of the week when there would be a meeting of say around 5 students only, 5 to 10 students only. So if I'm assigned with 30 students, not all the 30 students will come to me. On a Saturday, only 5 students will come to me. So I can interact with 5 students only. That is a scheduled mentoring that I will be doing. And there will be an ongoing mentoring which happens in classroom, which happens in the corridor also. So this, scheduled mentoring will kind of reduce workload related pressure on you when it comes to mentoring. Any more questions?
This is my last question, sir.
Yes, sir.
As I already mentioned, we have only few female faculty members. This is a fully women's college. Higher authorities also women's principal, CEO, academic advisor, everybody. But the highest role and responsibilities goes to the male faculty member. How to handle this kind of situation as a woman's college?
I missed probably your last statement. The highest responsibility goes to.
For example, sir, I take myself as example. I'm a ABC coordinator, not nodal officer, IQAC
Okay.
coordinator, ISHA
Okay.
nodal. So many responsibilities to
Mhm.
single hand. Situation is a women's college. I have to make my responsibility, accountability. I have to do better. And sometimes the overload burden make. For example, right now is 7:10. I'm in the institution. So morning 8:30 or 8:15 to evening 7 o'clock, I am in institution. It makes the work-life balance somewhat difficult to maintain. This is the last
I
question.
understand that. Okay, so your problem is not with the gender. A lot of women working in the institution is not a problem. The problem is that you are being overburdened in your college, right? Am I right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. So if I was at your place, the simplest thing that I would have done is to go to my administrator, the management council chairman, or the principal of the institution. The first thing I would go to is principal and tell him or her the situation that in gentle way, this is where emotional intelligence comes into play. If you go and start firing that मैं तो परेशान हो गया, मैं ये नहीं कर सकता, मैं वो नहीं कर सकता, then I think this will create a ruckus. So the simplest thing that you would go to sir or ma'am, I want to talk to you with respect to my workload. I've been noticing that my efficiency and the output is getting suffered due to so many things. Can we try this way that we should ask somebody else to shoulder this responsibility? Because I tried doing it, but I have been unable to handle it. So I'll be very much appreciating it if you can ask somebody else to shoulder this responsibility for some time and let us observe. So that gives your administration an option, right? So if I was at your place, I would go and respect very humbly to my administrator that I need to shoulder this responsibility somebody else.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your
Pleasure. Pleasure. The problem is your problems probably will not be addressed always. Sometimes you will have to live with the problems, and how well you live with the problems is how well is your emotional intelligence is going on. So it will happen. It might well happen that your administrator is not willing to share your responsibilities with somebody else. Then you will have to cope up with that and keep yourself calm and do as much as possible. Thank you.
Okay, sir. So we'll wind up.
Yeah.
So as we conclude today's insightful session on emotional intelligence and student mentoring, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Shrihari Pingle sir for sharing his valuable thoughts, experiences, and practical perspectives on nurturing emotionally intelligent and resistant students. His guidance and highlighted the vital role educators play not only in academic growth but also in shaping the character, confidence, and well-being of learners. We sincerely thank all the participants for active presence and engagement. We hope today's session inspires each of us becoming more empathic mentor and effective educator. Thank you all for joining us, and we look forward meeting you again in next episode. Have a wonderful evening.